Hey, thank you for joining me today. This is Terabro, and today we're going to be doing a pick a card reading based off of uh, crystals. So you're going to pick a crystal, and then you'll get a reading based on that choice of the crystal that you picked. As with all pick a card readings, you want to go with your gut reaction. So the very first reaction that you have of the choice that you want to make is going to be the most accurate. The longer you think about it, the more thought you put into your choice, the less accurate this is going to be. So go with your gut reaction. So it'll come from your stomach, or not your head. But however you want to define gut reaction, that's up to you. But if it requires a thought process, like a mental process, it's probably not going to be accurate. And the card reading is going to be for what your friends and family perceive you to be or how you come across to your friends and family. So essentially, what do other people think about you? So you might put on a persona, you might put on a show, and you might want to be thought of as a certain way, but ultimately other people are going to perceive you different than how you present yourself. So that's what this card reading is going to be for. It's going to let you know how you come off to friends and family, and it's specifically friends and family. So this could possibly apply in the workplace, but when you're working, you're not always going to be as open and comfortable as you would be around your friends and family. So it's more how you come across to others, not in the workplace, but rather friends and family. So if you look at these five crystals, go with the one that resonates with you the most. You can go ahead and put pause so you can take a moment to look at them. And if you want to go ahead and skip ahead, it's going to be timestamps in the description. Go ahead and find the one that resonates with you the most, and we'll get started. All right, so first up, we have those who chose Amethyst. How do other people perceive you to be? What is the impression you leave off on other people? Okay, so we have the Ace of Swords, the Knight of Swords, and the Devil. Okay, so you come off as bright to other individuals, but it it seems like you're a little bit rash and maybe in addition to being a bright individual, you also come off as a bit of a know-it-all, someone who imposes their views and ideas onto other people, and also somebody who is not one to self-reflect, not somebody to do the work. Like you're essentially do as I say, not as I do. You're the type of person who is going to have the answers for everybody, yet you are not going to perform any actual work on yourself. You can be seen as a bit of a hypocrite. Now, for example, you might point out how bad the food that somebody is consuming, how bad it is for their health, yet you may have like a strong cigarette addiction. And the hypocrisy in that is that, you're pointing out someone's health when your own health is something that you have not, um, you know, done anything about. And if you smoke cigarettes, that's totally fine. That's great. I'm trying to paint a picture more of um, some equality. Point is here that while you may be right in some cases, most cases probably, in pointing out the truth, the fact that they also perceive you as not taking your own advice, makes the advice that you give almost less valuable. Most people would rather take advice from somebody who leads by example. And if people see you as hypocritical, not taking your own advice, any advice that you give or any truth that you point out in their lives is not particularly going to be well received. You're just going to come off as a bit of a jerk. Ultimately, it doesn't seem like you are a bad person, but it just seems that the perception you have of people sometimes rubs them the wrong way. If you wanted to alleviate some of um, this issue of how people perceive you, I think a good way to try to overcome something like this is to perhaps maybe not jump on somebody if they have an issue, because not everybody that is having their issue is going to want advice. Even though you might have the answers, to how someone can fix their issue, unless they seek out a solution or unless you know that they want help, any help that you give them is not going to be well received. As tempting as it may be to try to be the individual to, save them from, their shackles, of whatever they're going through, however tempting it may be, um, again, it's not going to be well received. So unless somebody is letting it be known that they actually need help, I would say do not provide your 2 cents, do not provide your help because it's not being well received in these situations. Now, if you do want to be a helpful person, somebody who is, digging somebody out of, issues in their lives, out of depression, things like that, um, if you really want to help people, I would say the best thing to do for you then is to really work on yourself, practice what you preach. And if you can lead by example and almost be a testament to your system, more people are going to be open to your solutions or whatever you have. So, in short, you come off as a know it all who's a bit of a hypocrite. And so, next up, we have Malachite. How do others perceive you? What impression do you give other people? All right, so we have the Wheel of Fortune, the Hermit, and Four of Swords. All right, so it looks like the impression you're giving others is that you are a bit of a pessimist. We'll see you as being a product of your circumstance. Like something may happen to you that may prevent you to do something else or say be happy, like an example would be like if you watch Napoleon Dynamite, he has an uncle, Uncle Rico, and Uncle Rico, he's always talking about how he could have made state. He was a football player and he always thinks like, oh, what would have happened? I could have made state. I would have been the next thing. He's always talking about that. And whether or not he actually would have, become a professional football player had he, maybe done the right calls, in school to achieve that, there's no telling if he actually would have been a success. But it's almost like he is looking at a certain point of his life, like he missed out or he failed something, and that's currently what's holding him back from his current standing. You have a little bit of this. You have a little bit of like Uncle Rico syndrome, but more so, it looks like other people think of you as looking for something, like you're looking for issues, like you're looking for problems. Like somebody might tell you a genuine problem and you'll one up them, like, oh, I wish I had that kind of problem. Me, I got this type of problem. And you may very well be in a situation that possibly isn't the best, but in a situation like that, other people would probably perceive you as actually needing help. But the fact that people perceive you as being a bit of a victim, it kind of probably suggests that you don't have it as bad as you think that you do. Because what they specifically see is that you are looking for an issue. You're looking for something to be upset about. And what you have to figure out is that everybody is facing issues of their own. Everybody's facing issues. Maybe not everybody is vocal about their issues, but nonetheless, people do have their own issues, their own trials that they're currently undergoing. And you just have to understand that, you are not in a unique circumstance. Everybody's going through it. Sometimes we can't control our circumstances, but what we can do is control our reactions to those circumstances. And if you'd like to better yourself, try to shine less light on anything that might actually be holding you back. Because ultimately, what is holding you back is yourself. You are going to be your biggest ally and your biggest hurdle and obstacle. So in short, other people see you as a Debbie Downer and a professional victim. All right, next up we have Pyrite. For those who chose Pyrite, how do other people perceive you? What impressions do you give other people? All right, so we have the King of Pentacles, the Four of Swords, and the High Priestess. All right, so it looks like you are viewed as a respectable person, a mysterious person, a person who works hard, harder than they themselves would feel comfortable doing or working. People perceive you as being the type of individual who probably isn't going to go to the party because they would rather study and get a better life for themselves, if they're in school or something like that. People perceive you as being an individual to forego instant gratification in order to achieve something greater. You can be seen as somewhat detached, whether that be emotionally or you just don't prioritize your relationships with your friends and family. Other people would ultimately think that you have your life together, and if you needed help, they would have no way of knowing it because you're seen as a person who has their life together and doesn't need help from anyone. If there's anything negative from this spread here, is possibly that maybe you think you're too good for other people, but really that's more of a projection that other people may have on you, um, because ultimately people think you got your life together. Maybe they would just be upset about not being needed in your life. All right, next up, for those who chose Celestite, how do other people perceive you? What impression do you give other people? All right, so we have the Five of Cups, the Ace of Cups, and the World. So ultimately, it looks like you're perceived as a good person. You're seen as somebody who will receive help in times of need. Like maybe you've been through moments of downs, but it looks like there was help for you along the way. You're seen as a fortunate person. At times, maybe even lucky, but the main takeaway here is that it's like if something bad were to happen from you, or if you were to be presented with uh, a not so fortunate outcome, there is a sense of overcoming those obstacles and becoming a greater person because of it. You're essentially Rudy. Uh, I don't know what movie that's from. I just know it's a reference to football, like soccer. I'm sorry, not soccer, American football. Um, yes, I don't know the movie, but I guess he's like a little runt, and he's not football material, and he ends up saving the day, with his can-do attitude. Essentially, that's you. And I haven't seen the movie, so if Rudy's life, turns out horrific, we could just probably leave that part out because again, I haven't seen the movie, so I don't know his outcome. But you're essentially, that story, that miracle story, that you hear about on the news. This person was born with no head, and then all he wanted to do was, become a baseball cap model, and then he was able to do it. That's essentially like you're able to overcome something and be better because of it. Maybe the highs aren't the same, for you, but the thing that you'll have in common with other people who also pick the same choice as yours for this reading is that other people see you as having things almost immediately figured out, not figured out, but alleviated. Like you have an issue, they know that you're going to have that issue taken care of. Like something is going to fall in your lap. Like if you lost your house, everybody in town came in and pitched in for you and rebuilt your home. It's that kind of energy. That's how other people perceive you to be. You may be down, but the community is going to pull through for you. Like things are just automatically going to work out for you. And you seem to give the impression of being a good person. So it seems like, you know, it's well deserved. So whether you're not a good person or not, it's I think irrelevant. But people think you're good, and people think that your life is always going to work out. Whether it does or doesn't, that's another story. But um, that's how people see you. You're Rudy, the little guy who could. All right, last up we got Fluorite. So, how do other people perceive you? What impressions do you give off on other people? All right, so we have the Queen of Wands, we have the Two of Wands, and the Page of Wands. All right, so it looks like people see you as innovative. They see you as somebody who puts deep thought into what it is that they wish to accomplish before actually setting off and doing it. There's people who will talk about doing this and doing that, and they'll have all these ideas and plans and yet take action on zero. You're a person that will have way less plans than other people, but you will act out on those plans much more often than other people. Like you're going to be able to follow through on your plans. You're also seen as very practical, like very pragmatic, and a bit of an innovative person. Like you are probably well off doing something analytical, something like an engineer, something like finding a solution to an issue and setting out and creating a fix for that issue. Ultimately, you are a problem solver. You're a bit of a quiet problem solver. You could be the archetypal nerd programmer. You could possibly be, like a student. You have this impression that you leave off on other people of being that go-getter, that person that is able to accomplish things that maybe they themselves are not able to accomplish. If there's any negative quality about you here is probably maybe you're just not as relatable to other people. But that may actually be a positive thing. Like if you're the only successful person in your friend group, then it's probably good not to be relatable in a situation like that. One other thing that might contribute to a maybe negative aspect of this is because you are so tactful and maybe don't jump at something right away like others probably would, you're probably less prone to making mistakes. And mistakes is usually where people learn from things. So you are probably less relatable in that regard, where more people would be impulsive and say, take out a large loan on a vehicle or do something like get a tattoo that they'll eventually regret. They are essentially living their life. They're doing things that at the time are fun. Um, you, because you are maybe more tactful, you might be less impulsive and make less mistakes, and ultimately maybe be a little bit less fun. Well, honestly, I think I'm just nitpicking here. It seems like you're a good person overall, and the fact that you aren't able to bond over bad decisions with other people doesn't necessarily, take anything away from you. Looks like you're a good person overall, and the way you do things, is good, or at least that's how you're perceived by others. Maybe this isn't you at all, but that's what people think of you. So, in short, you are the timid, innovative person who is able to accomplish things that they themselves can't accomplish. All right, so that's the end. Thank you for watching, and please let me know what you thought. I'd really be interested to see what you think, and also too, if there's any other type of readings that you'd like to see, please let me know. so I can go ahead and do those for you. I'll be doing personalized tarot readings um, soon. Uh, check the description once I have a setup for it. I'll put a link in the description and you can get your personalized readings there. These readings are fun, but when you are reading for a multiple group of people, you're not going to get a as accurate reading as you would as if you were having a reading specifically just on you, that one person. But yeah, thank you for watching. I appreciate you tuning in, and I'll see you next time.